Yo, welcome back to the channel. Updated thoughts on the Sony FX3 after using it on paid gigs for 5 days in a row. We are strapped for time, so I will be referring a lot to the notes and reading a lot of it to you. Might be annoying, but realistically, that's the only way this is gonna get done. If you saw my unboxing video of this camera, you'll know my initial reception to it and reaction to it was not the best. But I did end that video with high hopes that I would grow to like this camera, much like I grew to like my A7C. I'm happy to report that although many of those initial gripes remain, and I found a couple more to add to that list, I am very appreciative of what this camera can do and its abilities and capabilities, and I don't think it would be an exaggeration or overstatement to say that this is nearly perfect for my needs. Also, I feel like it should be said that this is not really an in-depth review or anything like that. Think of this as more of a running series of thoughts and chicken scratch of my experience with the FX3. Alright, so getting to the notes. Because of this approach, this video will be simply structured accordingly: what I liked about the camera and what I disliked. My usage involved run and gun, product videos, interviews, and vlogging or personal documentation. We're gonna start with what I liked, since some people seem to struggle with hearing anything negative about the camera brand or camera that they have decided to devote their entire existence and identity and validation, whatever, happiness to. Referring to the notes to save time, the obvious one is image quality and autofocus. 10-bit S-Log3, great colors and nice dynamic range, great clarity to the image. The gamma curve is different from something like the Pocket 4K, but I'm a horrendous colorist, so I won't say too much on that. The autofocus is kind of crazy. I like being able to dial in the transition speed and sensitivity. It did struggle in some situations, which I'll elaborate on later, but overall very convenient, and tracking via touchscreen works pretty well. Low light, of course, great. I also like the quality of 1080p, which is a blessing when it comes to file sizes, and the forgiving rolling shutter on this camera is phenomenal if you're coming from something like the A7C, and clear image zoom with the zoom rocker thing on the shutter button here. I'm a huge fan and I'm using it a lot. Next, audio solutions in the handle. I'm using it with the Rode NTG3, which I found to be a very nice upgrade to the Rode VideoMic Pro Plus. Using only one of the XLR inputs means I can set up a safety track on the second channel, which has already saved me more than once. Using the 3.5mm port, I can plug in something like the Rode Wireless Go, which is very helpful during the run and gun portion when I needed to quickly lav someone up. It's really great to have all these audio sources synced up internally in the FX3, and I just really like having the peace of mind of having backup options. Like if the lav doesn't work out, then I got the shotgun. If channel 1 is too hot, then channel 2 is nice. Next, handle is better than no handle. We'll go into more depth on this next section. But yeah, at the end of the day, I'll take a top handle over no top handle. Versatility. This is probably the biggest selling point of this camera for someone like me. Run and gun has been a consistent part of my videography journey, and this camera provides the most versatility I've ever had in a camera. Big statement. Let's start with the physical versatility. It's a small camera, which is great when you want to be discreet. If you're filming out in public, sometimes you don't want to risk dealing with complaints or security. The FX3 can be stripped down to just the body and you still retain all of that amazing image quality. This is also where IBIS becomes extremely useful, as without it, the camera would be jittering all over the place because it's so light. For the first shoot I did, I walked in with this thing rigged up and could tell that people were uncomfortable and wary of the camera. Some of the people there actually didn't even know that we were recording, so yeah, immediately stripped the thing down and blended more into the background until people gradually became more comfortable. And when battery life became an issue, I could rig it back up and plug in external power to the FX3, which meant that I got to enjoy the benefits of having a heavier camera, resulting in smoother handheld footage. Also, flexible exposure mode, which is basically manual exposure with the option to quickly throw ISO, aperture, shutter speed into auto, is great to have. Exposure transitions and white balance transitions in this camera are very smooth, which is also a welcome feature. Honestly, I feel like versatility could be its own video because I see this camera as being able to fit into many different scenarios. But basically, the audio options, physical options, touchscreen that can brighten up to sunny weather mode or whatever it's called, the recording media options, the weather resistance fan. There's so many things about this camera that can offer peace of mind when in a run and gun situation. Also, things to throw in. Tally lights were great to have. The recording button on front of the body was really handy when I was holding the top handle, like so. Boom, boom, boom. I'm still getting used to the button placement, still not completely comfortable with having to use my left hand to power on and off, and I never use this joystick on top. Now, the section you may or may not like, feel free to click away now if you don't want to hear anything bad about this camera. Things I didn't like or could be improved. Again, I feel like I have to say this on the internet. This is just personal thoughts and opinion based on how I use the camera and my experience and skill level with using a camera. Let's start with image quality and autofocus. 10-bit files are very demanding on your computer. but nothing new about that. The autofocus did struggle with people wearing masks though. One of the gigs was a workshop and I noticed the camera preferred to focus on water bottles over faces on more than one occasion. Of course, when eye autofocus did hit, it was amazing, but yeah, somewhat frustrating. As for touch tracking, sometimes I would tap on a face or object and the camera would keep switching the tracking point to what it thought was the subject. So it's basically like I touch a face and the camera switches back, I touch it again. It was like back and forth. It was kind of annoying. I can see this possibly being user error though, since I don't really know too much about this camera, so I can't definitively say it's a con, but it is something that came up more than once. Next, the top handle. Like I said before, it's better than not having it, but here are some things that came up. First, I found it to be very uncomfortable and unwieldy. I often found myself contorting my hand to fit it, as you can kind of see here, although that's largely in part due to the Rode NTG3. I haven't used any other shotguns with this setup, and maybe it's my XLR cable, so it's just very long, but I constantly found my hand brushing up against the cable. Yeah. I haven't found an ideal place for an external monitor yet, but I have it screwed into the back of the handle with this friction arm by Small Rig, which just means that there's even less space up here to maneuver. And I think for the majority of the shoots, I actually ended up not even using an external monitor because it was just annoying, unwieldy. But even without the monitor, again, yeah, I was either hitting the mic a lot or I was just very conscious of it and like, I don't know, it wasn't very comfortable. Also, in my unboxing, I said the top handle feels very cheap. It still feels very cheap, but I mean, that really didn't matter when I was actually shooting. What did matter though, was this screw on the right side of the handle. This one here. My knuckles kept scratching it. Even right now, just holding it like this, you can see that there's not a lot of clearance and it's very easy to just brush up against it. Very annoying, borderline painful after 8 hours. I would say my hands are average sized. I don't know what to show you as a reference point, but yeah, annoying. Also, I wasn't aware of this, and it seems like a lot of FS5 or maybe FS7 users have found a workaround, but the diameter of this XLR holder thing is too large. So Sony's XLRs apparently just have a larger diameter. I think it has to do with broadcast specification, I don't know. But for standard shotguns like the Rode NTG3, I think it's standard, I don't know. Yeah, you can see. So my solution was gaff tape, which is not ideal because I'm thinking that it introduces a lot of handling noise. So for most of the shoots, whenever I was using this setup, I did need to have my earphones plugged in because I was just very worried that any sort of movement or taps on the camera was being picked up by the audio in the camera, which is not good. There are microphone spacers that I might try buying. Very hard to find in Canada, it seems. Other people have recommended O-rings, but yeah, I haven't seen many people speak about this diameter issue. Something to keep in mind. Oh yeah, also might try this Rycote shock mount thing that just plugs directly into here and elevates the mic, which actually might help with clearance when I'm using the top handle. I also wish the 3.5mm input could be split up into 2 channels so I could have a safety track, but that might just be a limitation of the Rode. Moving on to the body, I haven't found a use for the threads on the sides of the camera. So that's talking about this one and the other corresponding one. I did use the remaining thread on top of the camera, so once you plug in the top handle, you only have one left. I had this cold shoe extension by Small Rig, which was pretty useful, I guess, when I'm having the Rode Wireless Go plugged in and I still want access to the top handle, but only being able to have one screw in. If it gets knocked, it's gonna rotate, become loose, so I had to like have an Allen key on me at all times, which is also just one more thing to think about. Yeah, see, it just is gone. Where's my Allen key? Single thread on the bottom of the camera. Very curious decision. Drew on the base plate that I use with my Pocket 4K rig, put in some rods, did the external power installation and whatnot, and try to prop it up against my chest for stability, and the camera would just rotate, just merry-go-round for hours. Also, grip, uncomfortable. But yeah, long story short, it's great that it's versatile, but I'm gonna buy a cage. I really don't think this is a cageless design. Next, the touchscreen does flip out, which is amazing. However, it doesn't perfectly line up with the body this way and this way. I don't know if you can you even see that? It doesn't line up perfectly with the body, which is just mildly infuriating. Of course, doesn't affect the usability. I was worried that this was a defect though, but it does seem normal across all A7S3s and FX3s based on videos by other people. I'm surprised nobody else finds this annoying, but maybe I'm annoying. Actually, on the note of usability though, I did find that because it's not lined up perfectly, sometimes, I don't know, it just like throws me off when I'm trying to be perfectly level or parallel or perpendicular to the subject and whatnot. I don't know. Another thing about the screen though is that the second you plug in a USB-C cable, you lose the ability to really rotate freely. And really it's not even plugging things in, it's the fact that you have the flaps open. This thing will hit the flaps and you cannot rotate the screen. You have to bring it back and then rotate it and then put it back in. The second I have earphones plugged in, this thing is gonna hit. But again, what you can do is just bring it back, rotate it more, and then fit it nicely in between. But the top right of the screen is kind of covered by the earphone jack, and I was using like the Apple earphones, so those are smaller but still covers the corner of the screen a little bit, which is again just mildly infuriating. Really dislike this, but I don't really know how they could fix it. I will say that these flaps though are very convenient, especially if you're comparing it to something like the Pocket 4K's flaps, which I wanted to cut off every single time I had to touch those things. Speaking of the USB-C cable, I had it plugged in. I couldn't find a D-tap to dummy battery in Canada for some reason, and I opted to power the camera through USB-C. So my options were this Power Extra NPF battery that has a USB out, plug in a cable into here and then into your camera. The other option was my NPF to V mount adapter solution, and it has a D-tap out, so I had a D-tap to USB-C converter, and again just plugged in the USB cable into the camera. Also just had a USB power bank. All three solutions resulted in around 4 hours or so of battery life. I'm not completely sure. For reference, my shoots ranged from 4 to 8 hours, basing it off of that. I think without plugging it in, I was getting around 2 hours of battery life, plugging it in around 4 hours again, but the internal FX3 battery would die long before these external ones, meaning that the power draw is probably too low through USB-C. Need to look into this more since I don't know too much, but that's my current understanding. Even if you have it plugged in via USB-C, your battery's gonna die. Finally, when it comes to editing, I'm making proxies for everything, even though my PC is relatively powerful. Because I edit in Premiere Pro, I think. This is a relatively painless process, but I noticed some files will be recorded vertically based on the position of the body, I guess, when I press record. So if I'm pressing record and the gyro sensor or whatever thinks that it's like this or it is like this, it records the entire file vertically. So you make a proxy, the proxy, I think default setting, and I don't know how to change it. It makes a landscape orientated proxy, so it becomes distorted, you can't use it, you have to turn off the proxy, so you wasted time. I googled this and it seems that you can't turn off that feature. Maybe there's a proxy workaround, but I have yet to find it. Hopefully this will be addressed in a future firmware update, or I just become smarter and figure out a workaround that works. Anyways, that was a lot. Hopefully it offers some perspective. I think this camera is perfect for someone like me who isn't really a specialist and just needs maximum versatility out of a camera. There are a lot of things that are annoying about this camera, but I can't really say that any of them are deal breakers. If anything, the more I use the camera, the more I'm growing to like it because I can better understand how to work with it. I'm gradually becoming more and more appreciative of its versatility and the peace of mind that it offers because of that versatility. Also, hopefully reading off of the notes wasn't too distracting. Probably was, but this is the best we can do at this point. I am swamped. But yeah, like always, thank you for your time. Hope you're happy, healthy, well, safe, and bye.